I can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. All right. Lord, we love to sing your praise. Lift up your name. Come on, every voice. Help me sing. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty your voice.
Hey folks, I'm Joe.
And for once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Oh, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath. They're evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature so alive, oh, I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. Amen. We lift you up. So will I. Come on, let's declare this. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. Oh, if the wind goes where you send it, so will I. Oh, if the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. Oh, if the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. But as you speak, come on, 100 billion failures that disappear. Oh, but you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed measure could amount to your deeds. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. Come on, let's give him praise. Come on, let's lift up his name. Father, we worship you, God, with all we have. We lift up your name.
Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Trucker here. And you see Auntie is doing her favorite thing in the world, chewing on a bone, so she is as happy as can be. Also, just kind of cool thing, get the microphone positioned. I was like trying to get everything set up and was a little slow. Sound is bad, says Jeff. Let me see. Says Jeff. Oh man, it screwed that up again. Alright, hold on. I go to tools. Oh, I know. Hold on. Stupid thing. Alright. Got that part. And we go into settings. And audio. And where is it? Tools, settings, audio, come on, microphone, where's your output, where is the stupid thing? Why does it not see this? Hold on. Technical difficulties. Problem is sometimes changing the settings while you're running this thing can be a pain. Alright. There it is. Client. Alright, so now we should have a deranged lunatic donated $2. Thank you.
Who was the musical group at the beginning?
Well, deranged, that musical group was actually none other than our church worship team led by Kyle. He was the one who was singing it. But that's the group we hear every single week. Yeah, sorry about the audio snafu there. The USB device that I use to connect this microphone to the computer, sometimes the cable falls out and have to reconnect it, and then I have to get this computer to recognize it again before I can fix it. What I want to show you guys real quick though is check this out. So this is from service last night. So yes, we are back meeting at the church, and that noggin in the middle, yes, that is in fact me. Mrs. Anti-Trucker is hidden in the shadows, so sorry, you're not going to see her there. But yes, we were there. Yeah, that was the 7 o'clock service last night. All right, now let me get this out of the way, and we'll get to the chat. And thank you, though, Deranged Lunatic. I truly do appreciate the couple of bucks. But yeah, we are so fortunate to have Kyle and his team do the music there every week. I mean, it really is, especially last night because, we haven't been in the church in a couple of months. And so last night it felt like going to a rock concert. And they're so good. And we're very fortunate. Mountains of Elysium says, greetings, Anti-Trucker fellow nerds. Was first in the house. Good to see you. Jussie Hark, I'm probably butchering your name, says, greetings. Jeff Franklin says, last. Nothing could be further from the truth, Jeff. Mountains of Elysium says, free Auntie. Auntie is not only free, she's got a bone she's chewing on. And then Hail Karoga, wrong answer. Sci-Fi Guy says, hello, good morning. Resolute says, good morning. Carlo says, hey, hope everyone as well as can be. Indeed. Sean says, Jolan True, my friend. Richie says good morning to everyone. Jeff is saying good morning to each individual in the chat. Number one Sci-Fi says good morning. It has been raining here in Florida like crazy due to the hurricane. Yeah, we're gonna get we got some rain the other day. We're gonna get hit from remnants of that stuff. I can't remember if it's like tomorrow or the next day. We're expecting some heavy rain this week though. And let's see. Sound is bad, very hollow sounding. Yeah, we already fixed that. JP says, good morning. Number one sci-fi said, what happened to your beard? Nothing. I trimmed it. Sounds like a jet engine. Yeah, we got that fixed. Captain Trek says, good morning, and everything much better. And then Carlos says, Bird of Prey, it's Sunday, Sunday, Sunday! Time to eat spam. Mama Prey saved to get the taste of the crystal skull out. Yeah, oh, man. I feel sorry for Bird. I know he watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull last night on his live stream. I would love to do something like that, watching movies with you guys. I just wish, my schedule would allow for me to do that. That's the problem, is getting blocks of time like that where I could do it in the middle of the day. But I'm still hoping that one day I'll be able to do this full time. Resolute says, good now, thank you. And Resolute then says, glad you got your church back. The state is still being sued to open the churches here fully. I don't know what is more disturbing to me, honestly. The idea that the state would force the churches to close, or the idea that the churches would then sue the state for the right to open. I don't know which is worse, because on the one hand, the churches should willingly capitulate. And in fact, I know that my father-in-law's church has not closed, even though they were told not to close. They're in Florida, in the Jacksonville area. And they never closed. And now my father-in-law is feeling sick. We're hoping it's not the virus, but it could be. And, that would not be good for him. He is not in the best of health. So that could be horrible if it is the virus. So we hope it's not. But the problem is that these churches that refuse to shut down, that say, oh, God will protect us and that kind of thing. Look, there's a great saying that someone told me. I wish I could remember who it was. You should have faith in the lighthouse, but you don't row into the rocks. Right? And so there is absolutely nothing wrong with believing that God has our best interests in mind, but that doesn't mean you do something stupid like gather together in groups when there is a pandemic going on, right? But people just don't comprehend it. There are so many people out there, so many conspiracy theorists out there of varying flavors that say that the whole virus is a hoax, that it's just an attempt at governments to seize control, to take away our personal liberties. And then you have people that say that the virus is like a biological weapon developed by China or developed by the United States or developed by somebody else or whatever. This is a plot from the left. This is a plot from the right. I've actually heard people say that, oh gosh, I can never remember his name, Fauci and Bill Gates are literally plotting to kill us all, that they are, in fact, the Antichrist. People need to relax with that kind of stuff. And it's just, and understand that. Now, look, I understand if you don't like the lockdown that's been going on. I certainly get that. I haven't liked it either. But I genuinely do not believe that Trump or any other world leader right now have made up the virus just so that they can institute a lockdown. And if they did, it wouldn't make a lot of sense because, first of all, Trump is not going to be able to hold on to this great new power that he has. And it's certainly not going to, I don't...
Asian Muslim wife born in USSR is the best choice.
Welcome, Crazy Alexander. And yes, I know your Asian Muslim wife born in the USSR is the best choice for you. That is for sure. And let's see. And I like that Bounds Alicia says, the deranged lunatic, greetings, perfect name for the people in this chat. Hey, I love my deranged lunatic friends here, so that's okay. It's true, but yes. Samantha Joe is here, says, good morning, my love to the family. Thank you, Samantha, and welcome. Tim says, volcano. Not sure exactly why. Mortimus says, good morning. Sean says, the state can force the churches to close, provided they force the closure of all gatherings. It's non-religious. It's non-religious if everyone has to do it. Agreed. And that's what they've been doing. They basically, the states that have said no gather, and it really does vary from state to state on how severe the outbreak has been. But it makes perfect sense that if you have an ridiculously contagious virus out there, it may not be the deadliest disease ever, but it is one of the most contagious ever. And so because of that, large gatherings are a bad idea if you're in an area where there's an outbreak going on.
Hello,
And in fact, and Valor puts in $5. Thank you so much, Valor.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Sexy Klingon wife is the best.
I would have to say that Sexy Klingon Wife is not a bad choice, but I still think Mrs. Anti-Trekker is the best. But that is not a bad one. But Sexy Klingon, you know, you just got to find one of those very rare, good-looking ones, you know, because most of the Klingons are, yeah. And anyway, the you know, I just get so frustrated. Like last night when we went to the church, right? Me, Mrs. Anchecker, and Joshua were wearing our masks because that's still recommended by especially if you're going to a large gathering. Now, the church took some safety precautions, what they reasonably could. The chair, like the rows of seats are like, they're normally between, like, where if you're sitting in a row, the row in front of you, the seat back of the chair is maybe 2 feet in front of you, right? So they spread that out so that the chair back in front of you is actually more like about 7-8 feet away, so that you actually have enough room to stand up in front of your chair and still have 6 feet away from the other person, right? That's fine and dandy. Granted, side to side, it's still seat, but most people would leave at least a blank seat or two in between you and the next person, unless they're in a group. That's fine. They had hand sanitizer at all the entrances for people to use. When they had, you know, our church typically at the end of service will have people stand up and offer to give prayer support to anybody that wants it. They were all wearing face masks and that kind of thing. So they were taking reasonable precautions. However, I would guess there was probably about 500 people there at the service, which is not full capacity by any stretch for our church. And so it was a decent crowd, but it was definitely not a, you know, particularly, it would be considered a bad night for us under normal circumstances. However, you know, there was maybe 20 people out of the group that were wearing masks, right? And that makes me sad because, I mean, look, I get it. I know that the masks are not the most comfortable thing in the world and you don't want to wear them, but you and people don't even understand the purpose of the mask. The purpose of the mask is not to prevent you from getting sick. It's to prevent you from spreading the illness to someone else. That's what it does more effectively. And so basically by refusing to wear a mask, you're saying, screw it, I don't care if I get you sick. Well, I have no respect for that attitude. And so I will continue to wear the mask until the all clear is given or there's a vaccine out, whichever comes first. Valor says, good morning. Glad the notifications worked. I am as well. Sci-Fi says, would you like to DM me your father-in-law's information to me so that I can meet him and you and him are okay with that? I would love to meet him, especially if he is close to where I am. I'll have to get his permission, number one, Sci-Fi. I don't know if he would allow that or not, so I would have to get his permission. He is, I don't know where you are, but he lives in Jacksonville. So you can tell me if that is close by you. Now, the virus isn't made up, but what's going on because of it is the true social experiment. Well, here's the thing, though. And boy, this is the tough one for leaders right now. And I got to say, my heart goes out to all the leaders of the world because it's a tough call. If they don't shut everything down, then people say they don't care about the sick. If they do shut everything down, then people say they don't care about the economy. So it's lose-lose. Sean says, yes, we are all deranged here. Sanity is like virginity. Life is a lot more fun after you lose it. Wow. Alexander says, religious rights aren't targeted by the lockdown. If you can stream massively your service, you still have religious rights. Target religious rights would be censure services. I'm not sure what you mean by censure services, because, you know, in the United States, if you want to complain, I can't speak for the rest of the world, because, you know, obviously the United States is one of the few places in the world where we have something like the First Amendment that specifically protects all manners of religion and speech. But the interesting thing about that is that if you really want to talk about religious rights being under attack, the virus has nothing to do with it. The tax code does. You know, the IRS has been censoring religion for some time now, and everybody turns a blind eye to it. Lady Sorella, daughter of Linkasa, is the best. I'm not even sure who that is. I'm going to assume it's a Game of Thrones reference, since I don't know what it is. Number one says, I live close to Jacksonville as well. Okay, well, then I will let him know that one of my subscribers is interested in meeting up with him one of these days and see if he would be open to the idea. I can't promise you, number one sci-fi. I will tell you, my father-in-law he's a great guy, but he's also not exactly a nerd in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, he's the kind of guy that will definitely, I mean, he'll talk your ear off about Jesus, but you try to talk about Star Trek, and he'll look at you, his eyes will just glaze over. Yeah. Carlos says, have we got to the point where they want it to spread quickly now to make it work like a vaccination, just keeping most at risk at home? Like, life seemed so important a few months ago. Let's see. Life seemed so important a few months ago was nice, but now? Well, I don't think that life is less important, but I do think that they have to get people back to work, because if they don't, then the economy will completely break. It's already strained. We can't keep pushing this. Samantha says, I'm not taking chances. Besides, I have a ton of masks I made, and I'm wearing the hell out them. Yeah, you know, and I'm going to wear them whenever I'm out of the house. If we go to the store or we're going to church or whatever, yeah, I'm going to wear the mask. I ain't going to be stupid. You know, like I said, I'm not going to row into the rocks. Alexander says, but when you have a mask, you mostly protect others from the virus as a protective tool. Simple masks protect yourself only at 5%, but others about 95%. Exactly. Well, and it's mainly to prevent you from breathing out particles of the virus. It gets caught in the mask so that you're not spreading it. And because the thing is that a lot of people don't stop to think about it. You could have the virus and not show any symptoms at all. You could have no idea that you have it, spread it to 1,000 people, and never get symptoms yourself. And then what if one of those people is an elderly person with diabetes or something and ends up dead? You know, and so that's why it bothers me when I see it's mostly younger people. I'm sorry, don't want to harp on the young, but young people tend to be very, very, we'll just say, arrogant about this kind of stuff. They tend to think that they're indestructible, and they also tend to think that that the mask is just for them. It's not to help others, and so they're not stopping and thinking about the altruistic portion of all this. And it just makes me angry that these younger people out there have no clue to what they're doing. And Mortimus puts in a couple of bucks.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Canadian-born Momo is best wife for Alexander.
So Momo, I didn't know Momo was Canadian-born, but so the Canadian-born Momo is the best wife for Alexander. Well, there you go, Alexander. You should be marrying Momo. Not the Asian Muslim woman born in the USSR, but Momo. Let's already read that. Let's see. Sean says, Lady Sorella, daughter of Linkasa, was Martok's wife. Oh, duh! And mistress of the House of Martok. I feel like an idiot now. But okay, very good. I don't even remember Martok's wife. Wow. I've been watching a lot of the stuff with Martok in it, and I don't remember his wife at all. Number one sci-fi says, next time you come to visit him in Florida, let me know. Will do, my friend. My sister's boyfriend likes to say that this virus is God's punishment and a test of the faithful. He said that he'd be surprised that I haven't gotten sick as I am a pagan. Well, your sister's boyfriend is an idiot. You know, now don't get me wrong. Could the virus be a construct of God sent down from the heavens to punish people? Sure. You know, people said that about AIDS. People have said that about a million different things, right? They said that about the big tsunamis that hit Asia a while back. You know, they say that every time an earthquake hits California. Is that a possibility? Sure. I'm not going to say it's impossible. But for people to say, oh, that's what it is? Really? So you and God are on like those kind of terms where God calls you up and say, by the way, I'm sending this, you know, in that case, why don't you demonstrate it to us by purposely exposing yourself to the virus and showing us how you're completely immune? And in fact, while you're at it, why don't you demonstrate how all the Christians have been immune to the virus, and that if you look statistically, I mean, even if you want to say that a lot of the Christians out there, and I've said this too, that a lot of the Christians out there aren't quote unquote true Christians, well, even if you want to say that, then you should still be able to see statistical evidence that the spread of the virus is lower within the realm of Christianity than any other faith, including the non-faithful. So show me the numbers. Show me the numbers. But that kind of talk is just stupid because, you know, it contradicts what the Bible actually says. The Bible does say that, you know, the old saying that it, you know, rains on the righteous and the wicked, that is from the Bible, right? And that is an explanation to the fact that bad things happen to good people. Jesus himself said to his followers, in this life there will be suffering, right? This is not, you know, you are not immune from having rough times ahead of you just because you're a believer. And in fact, you could argue that you take on a whole new set of things that could make your life more difficult. So that's, you know, to suggest that being a Christian makes you immune to the disease or whatever is absolutely ludicrous, or that the disease is sent to punish a specific group is also absolutely ludicrous. If it was sent to punish a specific group, then the virus would only affect that specific group. But the, you know, if people want to say that kind of crap, well, whatever. When I speak about religious services, I speak about religious celebration in normal time. Cancel them is against freedom of speech, but now it's only held. I know, Alexander, and you know what? I am not a person who has been saying that the government is overstepping its bounds. I think they're trying to do what they can. Now, I can't speak for every state or every country. Here in the state of Tennessee, they did not make it mandatory that churches close down. They only strongly recommended it, right? Basically, the governor said, look, it's not a good idea. And so, and our church, like most responsible churches, said, you know what? We are going to follow the leadership of our state, and we are going to shut down until such time as they say it's okay to start meeting again. Valor says, my sister is pagan as well, so I'm surprised she is with him, seeing his view on pagans. Wow, that's weird. And in fact, okay, so Valor, if oh man, you see, if you really want to yank his chain a little bit, Valor, ask him about what the Bible says about being unequally yoked, and see if he understands what that even means. Because yeah, if you are a professed Christian, and now you said this is boyfriend-girlfriend situation, so they're not married, not yet, I presume. So if this is boyfriend-girlfriend situation, so they are dating, they are not in a permanent, man, my eye is just irritated today, a permanent relationship, then as a Christian, as a believing Christian, he should not be dating a pagan. It's in the Bible. So ask him about being unequally yoked. At the job, we work with masks only when we are with customers or if we work close to each other. In the butchery, we are more than 2 meters all the time. And that's fine, but, you know, it depends on, you know, obviously everybody's individual situation. I don't wear a mask at work, but then again, I work right here at this computer right behind me, you know, so I'm not near other people I'm working. Mountains of Elysium says, if this virus follows the 1918 flu pattern, then August we'll see the second global wave hit. I hope not, but it looks possible at the moment. Well, I think it's going to depend on how stupid people continue to be. I would not be surprised if we see a second wave in the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you. because there are a lot of people that, I mean, first of all, I think that the riots and protests could cause a huge surge, particularly in the United States. I think that and a lot of people, like, the problem is that people have been cooped up for so long doing the isolation thing, that now that they're given back their freedom, so to speak, even if it's limited, they're going to rush out and, like, let's fill the beaches. Let's all crowd to this area. Let's all get together and party. Let's all blow off some steam, because it's been so difficult, and that is the absolute worst thing to do, because now you're giving the virus a chance to get a second wave. And so we'll see what happens. I'll not explain the details, but Momo the Challenger lives in California. Actually, Alexander, we already know Momo is Canadian. If something is punishment from God, is this the fact that my city will never have a Hooters restaurant? What a shame. I don't think that has anything to do with God. Many preachers of the Episcopal Church died from the virus because they still continue to do mass events. Well, I don't know about the Episcopal Church up there in Quebec, but I do know that gathering in large groups is a stupid thing to do, or at least was. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. It's moronic to say that God punishes the actions of people in California because they have an earthquake. They're on a major tectonic fault, so it's more likely to happen there. I know, and that's the thing, Mounts. You can understand that, right? And I can understand that. A lot of people, if you understand plate tectonics in even the most superficial way, you don't have to be a geologist to understand that earthquakes happen where there are faults, right? So my sister is a geologist. She lives in Alaska, and in fact, she discovered an earthquake fault in Alaska. And so I decided that I forever will call it Patty's Fault, because it's her fault. That's my sister's name. And so, but you don't have to be a geologist. So who is the earthquake fault in the middle of the wilderness in Alaska to punish? Doesn't make any sense. Just says, sorry, I was working my second job. You don't have to be sorry for that, my friend. I'm glad you're here. I think Lady Sorella was in only one episode, the one where she had to approve the marriage between Dax and Worf. Oh, okay. I vaguely remember that now. I remember the Worf and Dax needing approval. So I haven't gotten to that one in my recent viewing of DS9. I got sidetracked a little bit because I've been watching Space Force this last week or so. I'm going to probably do a review on that soon. I have mixed feelings on Space Force. Alexander says, the way the church collaborates, the way that the states will regulate the situation is after recommendations. The churches collaborate, the states don't need reinforce the law. I'm not sure exactly what you mean there. Loki's Morning of Mischief. Good to see you, Loki. Says, blaming any god for natural disasters and illness goes back to the dawn of man. Why did this happen? Why did I lose someone? Man has a desire to explain, so they have to explain it. Well, that kind of here's the problem with that, Loki, and I agree that's like many of the naturalistic gods. Gods like Zeus and Apollo, gods that, Thor, gods that are basically gods of the elements, right? Gods that, like, this is the god of lightning, this is the god of wind, this is the god of the sun, those types of gods were created as an explanation for, they were kind of, in a sense, one of the earliest scientific theories, if you will. And I know that sounds silly because obviously they're not true, but science isn't about knowing the truth, it's about seeking the truth. And it was an attempt to explain what we could observe, right? We can observe lightning. At the time, we had no clue about certain natural phenomenon and how electricity works and stuff. So we assumed that there must be a living being behind that lightning. And so we create the idea of Apollo or Thor or whoever, or was it Zeus? I can never remember the Greco-Roman myths I suck with. But anyway, But we come up with these ideas as an attempt to explain natural phenomenon, because here's what we can observe. What is the most logical solution to that? Now, as we learn more about the world, we realize, no, there's not a person standing up in the clouds throwing lightning bolts at the earth. And so that starts to make more sense. But that's kind of where those gods evolved into being. Now, as far as a monotheistic god, that's a whole different ball game. And the reason being is that a monotheistic god is not an attempt, even though some people try to use it as such, the monotheistic god, regardless of your individual religion, the monotheistic god concept is not about explaining away individual events in the universe, right? I don't need Yahweh to explain why lightning exists. I don't need Yahweh to explain why pandemics happen. I don't need Yahweh to explain earthquakes or the moon or any of that. And so it's a very, very different God concept. It's not a scientific God, and it's not meant to be. The only scientific question that the monotheistic God really can address in any way, shape, or form is the origin of the universe. But as far as events within the universe, basically, if most, and I understand that's not 100%, but most monotheistic God concepts revolve around the idea that there is a God that created what we call the universe, and then the universe has its own set of natural laws and functions and processes, and that's where we get all the various laws and processes that we've been discovering ever since. And so to sit there and then turn around and say, well, this earthquake is God's punishment, you're degrading God, quite frankly. You're putting God at the same level as, well, Loki. Mountains Lisi says, the Bible clearly says the slave is no more important than the master. It clearly says that we are going to suffer too and won't be spared. Yes, and it's really frustrating to hear Christians that genuinely believe that if you have enough faith, you know everything will be fine. No, you know what? Christians are going to die horrible deaths. Christians are going to get sick. Christians are going to go bankrupt. Christians are going to suffer from all the same things that other people do. Sean says, sadly, there's always a second wave. The only question is how big it's going to be. Well, yeah. And Luke of Paris, good to see you, my friend Luke, says, in nomine Kirk et Picard et Spiritus Spock, long live and prosper. Very good, my friend. That is from, of course, the Gospel of Trek. Or actually, well, I don't know. You have to come up with something like that. So the Old Testament of Trek would be like the Book of Kirk, the Book of Sulu. You know, that's the Old Testament. The New Testament of Trek would be, there's the Book of Picard, of course, the Book of Cisco, the Book of Janeway, the Book of Archer, and then, of course, for the Mormons of Trek, you have the Book of JJ, and for the I don't know. Oh, that was just horrible. Valor says, I was watching Tim Pool. He covered an article about a researcher that said that 2012 wasn't going to be a bad year, but 2020 would be the year that we would be the most violent. Well, that's interesting, but you know what? Here's the problem. Somebody predicted 2021 would be the worst year. Somebody predicted 2019 would be the worst year. Somebody predicted 2022, 2023, etc. Somebody's going to be right. Broken clock syndrome. Richie says, I finished watching Space Force last night. I like it overall. I like elements of it. I can't say I like it. And that's the problem. I have a big... There are some things that I absolutely adore about the show. Steve Carell is one of them. He is absolutely great. I actually really like John Malkovich in the show, too. But there's certain things that just really bother me about that show. That, I don't know. I don't know if I should talk about it here because it'll be spoilers for when I do the review. I don't know. You guys tell me whether I should talk about it. Christopher says, theodicy, the question of how God can allow evil, is one of the biggest questions we face. I ask, how much evil would exist if there was no God? Well, but here's the problem with that, Christopher, is that the problem, I actually did a video many years ago on my old channel called The Problem with the Problem of Evil. And the problem of evil is that it doesn't take into account what the Bible actually says. Because the existence of evil in the world should be absolutely no surprise to anyone who's read either the Old or the New Testament. Because as of, the only time that there was no evil in the world was prior to the fall of man, basically in the first couple of chapters of Genesis. However, once the world fell, and whether you believe that to be a metaphor or literal is irrelevant, but once the world fell, once we became a sinful creature, the rest is on us, right? And so that's just the way that it works. Luke says, your account of natural religions doesn't sound silly. I might add that those gods were also created very human because they were also meant to dive into the human psyche. Agreed. They were actually an interesting, and in fact, you could look at them as a psychological reflection of the societies that spawned them. Quebec is messed up. The Quebec government is so deeply in bed with the Catholic Church, it goes back hundreds of years in Canuckistan. I don't know jack about that, so I'm not going to comment. Valor says, wasn't Zeus the first fury as he liked to change into animals, or first furry as he liked to change into animals when he had his way with women? Well, I don't know if he was the first, but he was definitely enthusiastic about it. I mean, so are you saying DJ Odyssey and Zeus have a lot in common? Just wondering. Plants are alive, but we don't think of them the same as animals. Are vegetarians just as bad, or is it okay because they are different life compared to us? That's an interesting question. Because here's the thing. I actually, I think there's a fair point there to be said that, for vegetarian... Now, look, if you're a vegetarian because you prefer vegetables, I have no problem with that. I don't understand it, but I have no problem with that. If you're a vegetarian because you believe that it is healthier to eat a diet composed entirely of vegetables, I have no problem with that. You knock yourself out. Have a great time. If you're a vegetarian because of ethics, you're an idiot. Because first of all, you want to say, we want to preserve the saintly animals, right? Because what did the animals ever do to you? Okay, that's true. What did the animals? Well, they're how many times in California do mountain lions attack people? Oh yeah, those saintly animals, right? They're just so sweet and loving and kind. Animals never attack each other or people, except for when they do. But then on the flip side of that, you also have the fact that plants are indeed a life form. And if your argument about the ethics of it is that just because a cow is not sentient doesn't mean that it can't suffer and it's not wrong to kill it and eat it, that's perfectly fine. But I would say the exact same thing about a carrot. And in fact, there have been studies to try and show that plants can, in fact, feel pain. Now, do they have any kind of conscious thought like we do? Not from what we can tell. But they definitely react. Like if you hook an EKG up to a plant, you can definitely read a reaction when you cut into a plant and stuff like that. So it's absolutely wrong to suggest that only animals can suffer. And so if you're a vegetarian simply because you don't want to hurt anything, you shouldn't eat anything. You should just starve yourself to death. And in fact, I think Spock put it best. Technically, we all feed on death, even vegetarians. Valor says, I can't believe I misspelled Zeus. I need my morning coffee. I'm working on it. Luke says, enter. You might don't need to demand Yahweh. I'm not sure. You might don't need to demand Yahweh to do so because he is meant as an ancestral God rather than a natural God. He is the progenitor and the patron God of the Israelites. Well, but you get I understand what you're trying to say there, Luke. I disagree with you on some of it, which I know you and I will never see eye to eye on some of it. But The idea of a monotheistic God is not to try and explain natural events as much as meaning of life, existence, etc. While a bit simplistic of a response, polytheism was a speculation, a god or everything, whereas monotheism comes out of revelation. I tend to agree with that. Actually, the Book of Archer would come before the Book of Kirk, would it not? No. Well, see, here's the thing. The Book of Archer was written after the Book of Kirk, but it describes events that took place before the Book of Kirk. That's what you have to understand. Well, we'll have to get the whole Trek Bible together one of these days. But isn't God in control of everything at all times, thus a belief that everything happens for a reason? Well, the idea is, and this is where I think, honestly, I know I mix up my theology and Trek sometimes, but I think it actually makes sense in this case. When Spock in Star Trek VI said the line that you have to have faith that the universe will unfold as it should. I think that when the God is ultimately in control, right? God could change any event. Now, does that make God personally responsible for every event, right? For example, God could change your mind about something if he chose to. Does that mean that God is now responsible for your every thought and decision? That's an interesting question and conundrum. Some would argue yes, some would argue no. Is there a reason that God chooses not to intervene? I'm sure there is. Don't know exactly what it is. But what we see in the Bible is that God can intervene. Not that he does, except for in very specific circumstances, such as hardening the heart of Pharaoh. Actually, the book of, I already read that. Just after the U.S. Civil War, one futurist predicted that in 100 years, the level of horse manure in the cities would make them totally unlivable. And it's true. Look at it. Let's see. Resolute says, Space Force sucks. I couldn't get past episode 1. Screw Steve Carell. Well, I disagree with you on Steve Carell, and Space Force, I don't think it sucks. I just think they really, really missed a golden opportunity. Where is Joseph? Good question. Must be, he's in Slovakia. I think, it's Sunday in Slovakia. Isn't that like the day that they all run through the streets naked, I think? I said this would be the year of change. I didn't know it was going to be worldwide. I just thought my life, this is all my fault. Well, Carlo, dang it, you screwed it up. Samantha says, I finished Space Force last night. There are a few things that made me cringe, but I liked it. I'd love to hear your take. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Space Force, it's like, ugh. Luke says, if there's no prior evil to the fall of man, how do you qualify the Christian character of Lucifer, a.k.a. Satan? Well, Satan is an interesting character for sure. Depending on the way that you look at the Bible, Satan is sometimes thought of as a straight-up evil character. Sometimes, no, he serves a necessary function. One thing you can definitely say if you look at what the Bible says is that everything that Satan does, he does with God's permission, meaning that Satan cannot overstep his bounds. Now, Satan may have ill intent for humanity, but is there a reason for that? Is there a reason that God wants us to be challenged? Is there a reason that God wants there to be strife? I don't know. But it's not completely outside of the realm of possibility that a loving God would want some strife in our lives, because how else do we grow? How else do we become better people and stuff except for through trials? We do not become better people by being spoon-fed everything and basically spoiled. So as far as I don't, as far as the Christian character of Lucifer, aka Satan, well, it's interesting that you phrased it that way, because Satan was around a lot longer than the birth of the Christian church. Some 2,000 years ago, Satan was referred to in the Old Testament as well. Vivian said that if there was a Star Trek related Hooters, it would be a smash hit, having Klingons, Orions, etc. And she said it would be the most popular. I don't know if it would be the most popular, but it would be interesting. If it wasn't for the whole copyright thing, I think somebody could definitely make a few bucks doing that. And Luke says, bonus, why would there be a tree of knowledge of good and evil in an evil-free garden? Well, actually, I think that and that's one of the reasons, Luke, that I think that I tend to look at Genesis as more metaphorical than literal. I know that some Christians out there think that's blasphemy to say that, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil. By the way, props to you, Luke, for actually calling it by the proper name instead of just the tree of, some people say the tree of good and evil, some people say the forbidden fruit, but yeah, thank you. I believe that is in fact a metaphor for a certain stage in our evolutionary development. I think that is when whichever version of proto-man, be it Homo erectus or Homo habilis or whatever, I don't know, not pretending to know, not going to even try to speculate, but whatever proto-man became the first moral creature, that's what is represented by the tree of knowledge, is that at that point in our evolutionary development, we understood good and evil. Prior to that point, prior to the first moral person, humans, just like animals, were not good or evil. They simply did whatever their instincts drove them to do. Nothing more and nothing less. And I know that some people, they have a difficult time with this because they'll see, an elephant, a herd of elephants going to defend a baby or something, and they'll say, see, they're good. No, they're not. They're acting on instinct. And all that, but they are not necessarily, saying, "Oh gosh, those mean old lions. We need to go stop them because they're evil." I don't think that animals have a true understanding of the concept of good and evil. I don't think that animals have really much of a concept of much beyond self and what their needs are. And in some cases, they're herd, because I think there is a thing of the herd mentality, and I think that that's a groupthink almost within animals. But I don't think that it's an intellectual groupthink. I don't think that it is a moral groupthink. But when man became a moral creature, at that point, we had to make our own choices as to what the right and wrong thing to do. And where morality comes in is when something is right or wrong and you choose to do wrong because of instinct or self-preservation primarily. My question is, how much more evil would exist if God is not based out of the book, would exist if God did not is based out of the book of Job. God clearly put limits on what the devil could do. Without limits, it would be unchecked. Well, but the thing is, Chris, and this is honestly where I think it boils down. I don't think the universe could exist at all without God. I do think that, well, I understand, the Christian God, you can try to poke holes in the Christian God concept or whatever, but I do think that the universe wouldn't function at all without a God. Well, DJ and Zeus both have beards and both furries. Coincidence? Probably not. Sean says, Luke and Anti-Trigger, one cult of Christianity has Lucifer as the warden of God's prison. He is a good guy with bad PR. Well, that sounds like the show Lucifer, actually. But it doesn't make a lot of sense because it doesn't kind of line up with Scripture. Because the problem is that if you look at the end time stuff, you can see that that Satan is actually punished, and hell is not a place where Satan is in charge. I know that that's the popular way to depict it, that hell is like this lake of fire and Satan holds the keys and is the boss there. But the problem is that that's not in the Bible at all. That's just stuff that artists in the Renaissance era and stuff made up. And it's cool, but it's completely inaccurate. Let's see. Jeff says, I was upset boycotting the airing, not sure about, I was responding to Richie. Boycotted the Crystal Skull airing on Bird of Prey? Why is that? And I'm boycotting the God. Why are you boycotting Bird? I don't understand, Jeff. What's going on? Are you mad at Bird? I remember the people, the ethical treatment of plants and vegetables. That's right. I'm a pet peeve. I'm a pet peeve. Wow. If people really love animals, they wouldn't eat their food. That's why I'm a carnivore. If people really love animals, they wouldn't eat their food. That's why I'm a carnivore. And let's see. Bird of Prey says vegetarians are objectively worse people as they cause pain and death to thousands of plants instead of one cow in any given day. Well, I don't know about thousands. I don't know any vegetarians that eat thousands of vegetables in a day. But yeah. Tim says the meaning of life, according to George Carlin, plastic. The plant wanted plastic and needed us to make it. Ah, I don't remember that one. John Wayne says, and yet God can cause... I can't do John Wayne. And yet God can cause good to come from evil acts and bad things because the actions of Joseph's brothers and the line of the Messiah was saved. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that God, I think, is... I actually like the way they depicted it in Futurama, that when God is doing his job right, you can barely tell he's there at all, right? And that's when God was talking to Bender about that. And the idea is that God sees, okay, so let's see, you want to do that and that and that. Okay, let me adjust this one piece here, there. Now it's in line with what I want. All right, and then you're going to do that. Oh, wait, let me tweak this here. All right, and let me fix that. All right, I don't think that God is just like, okay, I'm going to control every event all the time because then we're just the Sims. Luke says, Andy Checker months ago, without God, there's no meaning to life. Andy Checker today, God is the actions of God, because of the actions of Joseph's brother. God got jumped around. God is unnecessary to explain the meaning of life. We now agree, but I didn't say God is unnecessary to explain the meaning of life. You misunderstood me, Luke. I said that is exactly what God explains. God doesn't explain the natural processes of the world. God doesn't explain, and Arabic puts in $5. Thank you so much, my friend.
If the answer to life is 42, then why does Arthur come up with the question 6 by 9? Help.
Actually, I can answer that. Give me just a second, Arabic. I will absolutely answer that. I think that Arthur had the wrong question, but I'll explain. I do know the question. But let me finish this thing about Luke, and then I'll tell you the question of life, the meaning, life, the universe, and everything. So, I don't think that you don't need God to explain lightning. You don't need God to explain earthquakes. You don't need God to explain atmosphere or any natural event. What you need God for is meaning and existence as a whole. Not the superficial things, how processes work, how gravity works or whatever. That's not God. I mean, God is behind it, if you will, but that's not, you don't need religion or God to explain gravity. You just need him to explain existence. Now, let me address Aravic's $5 question. So, in, of course, the Hitchhikers series, we know that the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything is indeed 42. But we don't know what the question is, and then they try to work on the question, and Arthur comes up with what is 6 times 9, which, of course, is an inaccurate question. That is not the question. The question, I have deduced the question several years ago, and I hesitate to talk about it because, I don't know if you guys are ready for this level of revelation, but I will give you the ultimate question. So whenever somebody talks to you about how the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42, but you don't know what the question is, you will know what the question is. Are you ready for this? The question is, how old is old? Now, let me explain for just a moment. Because any good question, just like when we're talking about any kind of scientific endeavor, you should be able to boil down the answer or the question to some kind of basic mathematical proof, right? If you can't come up with a mathematical proof of it, then it's not logically coherent. And I do have a mathematical proof for the fact that how old is old equals 42. And it's actually very simple. Now, first of all, it is based on specifically United States of America, because the United States of America is the #1 superpower in the world. I know that some people may not like that fact, but it is an absolute fact. Deal with it. All right. So the but in the United States of America, the legal drinking age, in other words, the age in which you become a full adult person, is the age of 21. And Yosef donated $5. Thank you so much, Yosef.
Don't get cocky.
Greetings from the future. Had a nice afternoon nap. Now I am here celebrate. And as we say, Visat Konage Lepsi K Naradine in Arm Joshua.
No idea what you just said, but thank you, Yosef. I truly appreciate it. If you are in the chat here, let me know what that actually means, because I'm very curious. Okay, so back to the 42. So in the United States, you are considered a full adult at the age of 21 years old. On your 21st birthday, it is a tradition in the United States that you will go out and go to every bar you possibly can, which, by the way, I really feel sorry for people that turned 21 in the last couple of months. But what you would do, the rite of passage in the U.S. is that you go to all the bars you can, because on your 21st birthday, it is also a tradition in the United States that the bar will give you one free drink. And so you go bar hopping so that you can get completely smashed on your 21st birthday on free drinks. And I did this. Lots and lots of people do this, right? Now, while you are out bar hopping and drinking and having a huge party, at that exact same moment, in the nearest hospital, a child is being born. The cycle of life. A new life is entering the world as you are celebrating your adulthood. On your 42nd birthday, that child is out drinking and partying, and the next child is being born. The cycle of life. You're old at 42. Bam. Blow your mind. All right. So, just as God probably didn't intervene because he wouldn't get that entertaining variety show that is Our Planet Earth. He doesn't need to change channels. I'll tell you, there's as silly as that may sound, I do think there is some truth to that. I believe the best way to reduce suffering for food is not to waste any meat or vegetables. Too much food goes to waste. It is disheartening. I agree. Rich says, in other words, Night Trigger, Satan does God's dirty work. You can make that argument. And Jeff says, I genuinely enjoy Crystal Skull and Galaxy Quest, but not watching him with Bird. But why, Jeff? Why are you mad at Bird? What did he do? I will consider finishing the series if you can tell me Carell gets less cringy as things go along, because at this point, I just want to punch him in the face. Well, if you hate his character, honestly, if you hate Steve Carell's character, you should love the show, because everybody acts like he is a complete moron and idiot, and he's not. Now, you may hate me for that. You may want to punch me in the face for that. I really, because when you look at his character, with just a few exceptions, I mean, he's not the most competent guy in the world, but that's just Steve Carell playing a Steve Carell character. However, he is the only character in this show to show a consistent moral compass. He is the only person in this show to care about morality at all. And when you look at like his wife, and you look at his daughter, and you look at the scientists that he works with. Now, granted, his assistant, the one-star general, I can't remember his name, is not a bad guy. Don't get me wrong. Not every character is like horrible or bad, but Steve is the only one that really makes a stand that, no, we're going to do what's right. We're not going to do what's wrong, right? It's when his wife, who is in prison throughout the series, is saying, well, let's have an open marriage because, I want to screw somebody in prison. He's like, no, that is not right. That's not okay. Why don't we just get divorced? Oh, I love you, And so, no, he is the only person that truly cares about morality in the show. So if you hate his character, you should love the show because everybody hates his character. I don't believe in a supreme being. I know that, but if I would be a supreme being, I would not create beings only to control everything they do. It's so ridiculous. Well, I don't think God does control everything we do. No, Satan is not referred to in the Old Testament. Satan is simply the ancient Hebrew term for adversary. There are many Satans in the Old Testament. None of them have a capital S. Luke, obviously, the Old Testament and New Testament are written in different languages, and I know you know this, all right? So Satan is not referred to in the exact same terminology as he is in the New Testament. But you do also realize that the New Testament was written by Jews. So yes, Satan is a Jewish concept from the beginning. In the book of Job, the adversary was Satan.
Can you boil down how we are all given free will? I see that in our belief in God, the factors that shape our world, not God directly intervening.
I will, Mortimus. Give me just a moment, and we'll talk about free will a little bit. But yeah, Luke, so just because you don't hear because, and by the way, you could reinterpret some, and that's the other thing is that if you, and you know this as well, is that the syntax and everything of Hebrew is very different than the syntax of Greek, and is very different than the syntax of modern English, right? And we're talking about ancient Hebrew, not even modern Hebrew. And so to suggest that just because there's not, it doesn't say Satan with a capital S, well, that's more a matter of interpretation of the actual words. But yeah, read Job. You don't think that's Satan? You have fun with that. I'm sure you're going to come up with some reason why it's not, but hey, that's cool. And by the way, Satan means adversary anyway, or challenger, I believe, is actually more accurate thing. Adam and Eve were the first moral people, but not the first people, and we are all from their bloodline. Well, actually, that's an interesting statement, Carla, because yes, why not? You know, there is, what do they people call it, the mitochondria? I can never pronounce these scientific words, but mitochondrial Eve, or how many people are related to Genghis Khan. It would not be difficult to see a singular bloodline from some 5,000 years ago that we are all tied to. I don't have a problem with that. I think most people don't have a good understanding of good and evil. I agree. And the problem is, Sean, is that line is getting blurrier and blurrier every day. All right, so Mortimus says, can you boil down how we are all given free will? I see that as that and our belief in God, the factors that shape our world, not God directly intervening. Well, first of all, free will, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing because there's a huge debate both within Christianity and outside of Christianity as far as free will versus determinism. Determinism, of course, is the concept that we are all destined to do what we will do. We do not make any true choice in ourselves. We're simply responding to stimuli the only way that we possibly can. Now, I will say this. When I was an atheist, I was absolutely a determinist. Absolutely. And I don't believe you can be a logically consistent atheist and not believe in determinism. Because you can quantum all you want, but the fact is, just because we can't predict something doesn't mean that the events aren't preset. Like if you, because observing the behavior of a particle changes the behavior of said particle, which means that as a human, from our perspective, we cannot predict the exact position and velocity of a particle. That being said, that doesn't mean that if there was no observation, that the particle would somehow magically change course. It's not random. It's simply that the observation makes it so that it's going to change the actual result in some way that we cannot predict. And people get this, and this is the God complex that humanity has. We think that if we can't predict it, it's random. If we can't predict it, it's unpredictable. Wrong. If we can't predict it, we simply can't predict it, right? Just because I can't see the other side of that wall doesn't mean there is nothing on the other side of that wall. And so, but we get so full of ourselves that we think if we cannot observe it, if we cannot predict it, if we cannot break it down mathematically, then it does not exist. And that, unfortunately, is at the core of atheism, to be honest, is that, well, since we can't see God, God doesn't exist. Since we can't test God, God doesn't exist. And We can't prove God. God doesn't exist. Now, free will is, of course, a polar opposite to this. Free will is the idea that we are, in fact, living, conscious, sentient beings. That we are, in fact, capable of choosing what we do. We are capable of choosing whatever we want to choose. I could choose to either create a little 3D print of Baby Yoda, or I can create a 3D print of Baby Yoda holding a bowl with Baby Groot sitting inside of it. That is completely my arbitrary choice. I can make that choice, and if you put me into, if I were a simulation as opposed to a real person, then sometimes I would choose to print Baby Yoda, and sometimes I would choose to print Baby Yoda with Baby Groot sitting, and maybe sometimes I'd choose to print something totally different, like maybe the Hulk, right? So it's arbitrary. It is, in fact, my conscious decision, not simply a chemical process in my brain that is reacting the only way it can react, because it's a chemical process. Now, can we prove free will exists or doesn't exist? Objectively, no. It cannot be proven. Subjectively, absolutely. I think it is 100% self-evident, but I can only prove it for myself. I absolutely know with 100% certainty, and this is the only thing I know with 100% certainty, that I exist. I also know that I think, that I process information, that I have my own personal preferences, my own emotions, my own feelings, and my own choices on things. I know that with 100% certainty, even though I can't prove it to you at all. Now, you know what I don't know with 100% certainty? That any of you have that same level of consciousness, that any of you are, in fact, living, conscious people that make your own choices. Only you know if you are. I can't prove that. It's completely 100% subjective, because it is the core of subjectivity. So if you are, if you have free will, then you can experience life the way I do. If you don't have free will, well, then you don't. And I can't speak for you. I can only speak for me. I know that I have free will. I don't know if you do. John Wayne says, as a cowboy on a cattle ranch, I implore that you all eat more beef. Keep me on the job. Absolutely, John. I'm with you there. I love me some beef. See the water running in the background there? It's like a fish tank or something. Is there water? Actually, yes, that is my fish tank. I'm sorry if it's a little too loud. It's actually, I need to put some more water in it. That's why you can hear it. I argue that animals have a concept of good and bad. They shift from good to evil. However, moral judgment, whether one animals have morals, is a very tricky question. I don't know. I don't think that they do have a concept. I mean, they have a concept of what they like and don't like, but there's a difference between like and a preference. Like, I like chocolate more than vanilla, right? I like being comfortable more than being in pain. Like right now, you can see Auntie likes chewing on a bone more than she likes not chewing on a bone, right? That is not good and evil. In the mind of Auntie or any animal, what is good is whatever is pleasurable. What is good is whatever makes you feel good. And unfortunately, guess what? That's what humanity is devolving into right now. As we push further and further away from any kind of absolute morality, as we push further and further away from God, if you will, we are becoming more like animals. That the only true good is what feels good. The only true bad is what feels bad. And we feel bad. Now, we are empathetic creatures. So when we see like what happened to George Floyd, we are angry. We are incensed. We know that that is bad. But try to push the evil angle for a minute. Because nowadays, more and more people will say there is no good and evil. Those are all just points of view. What is ultimately good? What is ultimately evil? Why, it's all just arbitrary. It's all just man-made. There's no good or evil. It's just indifference. The universe doesn't care. So, you know, and if that's the way you live, I understand it. I disagree with it, but I do understand it. But that is, you know, but there's, but just the, as far as morality is concerned, it's out the door these days. We don't care about morality. And that's one of my biggest problems with Space Force, is that the only moral character is seen as a joke. The only moral character is seen as old-fashioned, out of date, out of touch, because, oh my God, why in the world would he not want to be with his wife just because she wants an open marriage? Oh, what an idiot. Right? And she was making the absolute, in that episode, you know, she was making the argument that the world makes. Well, hey, you know, it's not about, you know, we made a commitment to each other because we love each other and we care about each other. We don't want to hurt each other. So, you know, it won't hurt you to go screw that other chick. So therefore, do it. Why don't you just throw up the Satanic Bible while you're at it? Which, by the way, the Satanic Bible is a non-theist. The Satanic Church is a non-theistic church, in case you're wondering. But the Satanic Bible does just the first thing in it: do what you will. Do whatever feels good. Do whatever feels right. Do whatever you want. Pursue your heart. Follow your dreams. Do what you want to do because it feels good. Yay! Oh, screw those people and their ancient morality about faithfulness. Screw those people and their idea of right and wrong just because some archaic god says so. Someone filled a pineapple with enough firecrackers to break an elephant's jaw, and knew it was going to die, and it was pregnant at its time of death. Humans can be downright evil. I don't know anything about that incident, Valor, but that is horrible. Theory of evolution says that life comes from death, and yet according to the Bible, death entered the world because of sin. The evolution dog wouldn't hunt because... Wait. Well, first of all, the theory of evolution doesn't say that life comes from death. I mean... You could, I understand that there are people that say that, but the theory of evolution is that with each generation of species, there are random mutations that, if beneficial to said species, can propagate throughout the species. Now, change comes from, you know, generational change comes from death in the indirect sense, because obviously, if there was no such thing as death, then there would never be any change. But the idea that life comes from death, no, life comes from life, actually. But that's trying to make evolution into a philosophy as opposed to a theory. I will be 42 in a few months, then I'll be able to give you the answers. Oh, you already have them now. Let me guess, you're 42 when you came up with that. Actually, I'm trying to remember when I don't remember. Here's a tricky question, though. Does God exist? If you answer yes, and if you need God to explain existence, that either God is existence or he can't explain his own existence. No, you're just playing semantics with it. God doesn't, you know what, here's the thing, Luke. Let me ask you a question. Is God beyond human comprehension? If you answer yes, then God can't explain anything to you because he is beyond human comprehension. Jeff says, I guess I'm not a traditionalist. I didn't go bar hopping on my 21st birthday. Well, you're not, but, you know, that's all right. And Yosef says, hello, it was happy birthday, Joshua and Slavic, so that you know where the 5 are going. No problem. Well, I already said, Yosef, and in case you didn't hear, any and all donations that go to the Streamlabs are going to Joshua because tomorrow is his birthday. And Fed puts in $5 Australian. Thank you so much, Fed.
Hey you at. Think some of the stupid of your rioters has leaked down under. Much appreciated if you took them back and thrash them most soundly.
Well, let me, and I see you put in another couple of bucks to amend what you just said, because, let's see, some of the stupid of your rioters, so these fools, I mean, take them back and thrash, okay, gotcha. And I don't know why. You know, that sometimes they're so stupid that you cannot. The Streamlabs like takes forever. There we go.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
These fools back. These fools, I mean.
Well, first and foremost, since you are Australian,
We get out back. We're having Outback special.
just can't take too much of that right now. Anyway, as far as the rioters, sorry, buddy, those are Australian rioters. You know, because you can tell they're Australian rioters because they're throwing their bottles to the left. Yeah. Anyway, Joseph, so what I was saying is that any and all donations I get through Streamlabs are going to Joshua's birthday fund. Couldn't do that bar hopping thing as I was already at the bars at 15, 16 years old and drinking here at the age of 18. Well, you see, that's just because you're a horrible person there. No, that's just my default for Steve Carell. Oh, okay. You don't like Steve Carell? Fair enough. So your question to the answer is flawed. No. You see, you're flawed for not being in the United States. You have to understand, and I did preface the whole thing by suggesting that it is based on the United States because the United States is the most powerful superpower that there is. And so, you know, there is that. Now, you know, you don't have to like that, but, you know, that just means that if your country was, in fact, the most powerful superpower that there was, then the answer would not be 42. I never touched an alcoholic beverage in my life. On my 21st birthday, my friends tried the bar hopping thing with me, and I only ordered soda. Safe to say I was called a wet blanket for it. Well, that's all right. You know what? If you don't drink, you don't drink. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, some would argue that that is a good thing.
Hello,
So there is that. And Pianodean puts in $10. Thank you so much, Dean.
Got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Happy birthday, Joshua, the Ayatollah of animation.
The Ayatollah of animation? Wow, I'm not sure how to take that one. That's a nice piece of floor in the bottom corner of your screen. Afterward, yeah, well, that's Auntie's little patch o floor there. And let's see. I'm just expressing mere opinion. I'm expressing the conclusion most biblical. I am just expressing mere opinion. I'm expressing the conclusion most biblical scholars. They all agree that the character of Satan Lucifer was later New Testament invention. You know, first of all, Berta Prey the Magnificent donated $10.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Happy birthday, Joshua.
Thank you, Berta Prey. I'm sure that Joshua will enjoy that as well. And I got my work cut out for me because I got to like write down the names of everybody that donated to his birthday fund for him. But Luke, first of all, your argument from authority is a logical fallacy. Just because that might be the opinions of some biblical scholars doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means that that's the opinion of some biblical scholars. Also, you know, I love, you're not alone in doing this. A lot of people do this. They say, oh, well, most biblical scholars believe, and then they'll throw something out there, right? Just like I've heard people on the religious side say, oh, most scientists believe, and then throw out something that clearly most scientists don't believe. So you simply saying this is what most biblical scholars believe doesn't tell me that most biblical scholars believe that. That just tells me that you're going to use that as a point of argumentation. Now, if you want to argue that the character of Satan Lucifer is a later New Testament invention, then you're going to have some work to do as far as trying to explain some of the Old Testament stuff like the Book of Job. And still waiting to hear about that one. Who is the character in Book of Job? Who is the adversary in the Book of Job? Please explain that to me. Pianodean says, a good day, son, and just because the name might be referred to as a different name, again, written in a different language, you know, Jesus' name is not Jesus, right? It's not even Joshua, it's Yeshua, right? That is the correct name of the man who is the Messiah. However, we refer to him as Jesus. Does that mean that Jesus is a different person than Yeshua because we pronounce it wrong? Good Saturday morning, everyone. It's very, very successful first Saturday night back at work. I'm so happy to hear that, Dean. I'm glad that you are back hitting them keys. Good morning, everyone. Hope we are doing well in an interesting time. Pretty good live stream today. Thank you, Tristan. Let me tell you, what was that? Okay, that was just the PayPal. There we go. Alexander says, if Conan fights against the Punisher and they have no weapons, who's winning? No clue, because I don't read either one. Kai says, but my money would be on Punisher because he has more modern combat techniques than Conan. Then we have the Bible. Let's see. Carl, and Joe Biden donated $1.
I got him! Great hit! Don't get cocky.
How dare you hold a church service? There's the Black Death will get to everyone. Now join me and thousands of protesters. Because I know the plague can't spread in a peaceful protest.
Hello, world.
Oh, and then Fed throws a 20 in there. Thank you so much, Fed.
Great hit! Don't get cocky.
Oh yeah. Didn't realize it was Joshua's birthday. Happy birthday, you wannabe pom tongue. Consider his back pay for the super chats and the fact that he actually is willing to speak the Queen's tongue proper. Have a slab on me.
I love it. And of course,
With 2 lobster tails, $17.99. Ask your waiter. Well, I will tell you.
Jess says, what if you are programmed to believe what you think you are 100% certain about? That's an interesting hypothesis, but there is a fundamental problem with that. You cannot, and trying to think of the best way to put it. Like, for example, when people say, oh, how do you know you really think? Perhaps you are just being deluded into thinking that you think, right? The problem with that is that there has to be something there to be deluded. You still have to exist. And so you cannot, it's one thing to like, your perception of the world could be a delusion. Like, for example, here's how I could be tricked into thinking or into choosing things. Like, for example, I made my thing about, Baby Yoda with an empty bowl versus Baby Yoda with a Baby Groot. And I think I'm making a choice between the two. But in actuality, what I don't realize is that I'm actually holding up 2 identical Baby Yodas. It's just that I think one of them is empty and one of them isn't. Now, that would be tricking me, but that doesn't change the fact that I still have free will. It's just that my perception of of reality is wrong, and therefore, even though I'm making a choice, it's a false choice. And Joe Biden puts another $1 in.
I got him! Great hit! Don't get cocky.
I hereby order you through executive order to stop making fun of my First Lady Bird Opry.
I will stop making fun of the Lady Bird of Prey. That's your new name, Lady Bird o' Prey. That's actually pretty good. Good job there, Joe. But anyway, so so you cannot think that you are making a choice. You are making a choice. However, what you could be deluded as far as your thinking is what is reality. I think that this little key USB thing is, like a purplish pink in color. Maybe I'm being tricked and it's actually green. But I still see it as that, and I might make my choice on whether I want to use this one versus another one based on that color, in which case my perception is wrong, but I'm still making an arbitrary free will decision. Luke says, come on, your account of atheism is certainly narrow in curricula, and I think you know it. Also, you seem to conflate determinism and fatalism. Well, first of all, determinism and fatalism are actually, they're related to each other. As far as my account of atheism, no, I think that atheism, if you want to be intellectually honest, should lead you to a couple of things. First, there is no morality. If you truly believe in atheism, if you truly believe in the idea that you should not live with the assumption that God exists, right? And by the way, I know people argue over atheism means this, atheism means that. What atheism ultimately means when I talk about atheism, and you can have your own definition, I understand, but I'm just clarifying where I'm coming from. If atheism is a position, it is an assumption. Right? Theism is the position or assumption that God or gods exist. Atheism is the position or assumption that God or gods does not exist. I am not claiming you have absolute knowledge that God doesn't exist. I'm not trying to claim that that the theist has absolute knowledge that God does exist. Can we please get away from those kind of really stupid arguments where atheists will say, well, I'm not saying I couldn't be wrong, and therefore I'm going to ignore your argument. No, either you hold the position or you don't. Period. If you don't hold the position, then don't call yourself an atheist. But at any rate, so that's all atheism in its core means, but it does have certain repercussions. If atheism is true, if there is no supreme being, if there is no God or gods, then that means that morality, at least on an objective sense, doesn't exist, right? Morality is simply a human construct in which we try to explain what we see as good or bad behavior. But in actuality, there is no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's simply what we enjoy and what we do not. And so yes, morality goes absolutely out the door with atheism. The other thing is, of course, determinism, because if we are all simply a natural process, if there is nothing supernatural about us, then everything in our brains is just a chemical reaction. What I'm saying right now is just a chemical reaction going on in my brain, going on the only way it can possibly go on, and I'm not actually having any independent thought. I'm not actually having any ideas. I am simply spewing out stuff because that's how the chemicals in my brain spew things out. And you're typing stuff because that's how the chemicals in your brain tell you to type. I think LDG's thought on the cosmic consciousness, I have thought maybe we're all one small part of it, and that maybe the whole consciousness is God, so we must be God or would have too many regrets. Well, that's actually a very old idea. The way you're describing it is a very old idea called pantheism, that the universe and God are one, that we are, that the universe is God. As opposed to panentheism, which is really closer to what I subscribe to.
I got him!
And Resolute Germ donates $5.
Got a fat damn dividend. Happy birthday to Joshua.
Oh, $50. Wow, Resolute. Thank you so much. And wow, Joshua will love that. Thank you, my friend. And absolutely blows me away, my friend. Thank you. So panentheism is the idea that the universe came from God. That the universe, if you could, would be like a excrement of God, if you will. I know that's not a very good way to put it, but that's kind of the general idea that God used himself to create the universe. Not that the universe is God, but that the universe came from God directly. And I see Lorecraft is here once again. Wow! Lorecraft, what are you doing here, man? You've got like your gazillion subscribers, and so you got sculptures to make, dude. And again, I know I've said it before, if you have not seen Lorecraft's channel, holy crap, you got to go to Lorecraft's channel. The man is a freaking incredible artist. And Momo donated $1. Thank you, Momo.
Don't get cocky.
Hail socialism. Free Quebec. Asian Muslim wife born in USSR is the best choice. I'll be seeing you very soon, Alexandra.
Oh man, we're just going there again. Let's see what Lord Craft said. I gotta skip ahead to I'm horrible for doing this, but Lord Craft is VIP in the nerd community here. So the most difficult position I found myself in when dealing with leftists are moral discussions. Asserting a higher moral position as a non-religious person is more than difficult. Attempting to persuade someone of a better way without higher moral authority and appealing to reason and empathy just doesn't seem to satisfy them, and thanks. You're right. But it's not just leftists, it's any type of, as far, because even though, it's funny, because when we say leftist, keep in mind that doesn't mean liberal. It means these people on the extreme far left. And yes, it's very true that most people on the extreme far left are atheists, but that doesn't mean if you're an atheist, you're a leftist. You know, they're not like tied together. But when we do argue over political issues, if there is a moral imperative to your political belief on something, it's very difficult to communicate that to someone who does not recognize that there is any kind of moral code that we all live by, even though there clearly is. I think that if you've ever read the book Mere Christianity, it has a very good example of how we all live by a moral code, even if we don't acknowledge that moral code. Let's see. Luke says, you're very confused. Look around. Everyone is obsessed with moral calls, social justice, my friend, moral puritanism, absolute morality is the current main engine of progressives. I disagree. Here's the thing, Luke, is that we're trying to redefine what is moral, right? We try to say that, okay, something is moral. You know, why is something moral or immoral? Is something moral or and you might say, well, because it's right or wrong. But then why is something right or wrong? Is it right or wrong because you don't, like, for example, why is, and I certainly would never do this, but why is, say, kicking a dog wrong? Is it wrong because it's causing pain to that dog? Well, then, so anything that causes pain to another person is wrong. But wait a minute. Why is it okay to punch somebody who is committing a crime, for example? You're hurting that person, so isn't that morally wrong? Well, no, but you see, then you have all these shades of gray, so to speak, as far as what is moral and immoral. Is there a standard to what is moral, right? Now, for most theists, the answer is clearly yes. You have the standard is God's standard of morality. To the atheist, no, it's kind of arbitrary, right? Why is murder wrong? Well, you could argue that murder is wrong because it causes chaos within the community. It's wrong because it causes suffering and all that. Okay, fine. So how about murder is wrong just because it's wrong? And God has decreed that it's wrong. But then you say, well, wait a minute, is it just wrong because God said so? Doesn't that make it arbitrary? Well, it's God's choice. It's his universe. Nitpicker says, have you seen my show, The USS New York? Any comments about the morality of the characters? I'm torn between making them funny or moral. I've seen a little bit of it. I haven't watched it all, so I don't know if I could give a fair assessment as far as the morality of the characters. But here's the thing. If you're going for funny, then go for funny. If you want to do a serious piece on what is morality and stuff, that honestly, in the format that you're doing, I think that's going to be a tough one to pull off. But you've got some good stuff there for sure. As you see, their moral absolutes are not coming from the Bible. Yet they're held as moral absolutes. You must now deal with the dark side of moral absolutism. As you can see, these moral absolutes, what are the, let's see. Are you talking about social justice? That's not a moral absolute. Social justice is changing all the time. 20 years ago, Hillary Clinton was all for marriage between a man and a woman. But God isn't beyond human comprehension. He never has been. You're confusing your beliefs with mine. No, I'm saying that if there is a God creator that is so vast and so powerful that created the entire universe, you wouldn't agree that that's beyond human comprehension. Fine. But see, here's the problem. You just think that God is some made-up human concept. But stop for a minute, Luke, and entertain the idea that there actually is a divine supreme being that created everything. Now, if that were the case, you wouldn't agree that that's beyond... Okay, let me ask you this. Is the entirety of the universe beyond human comprehension? Or do you think man is God, that we can actually understand everything? The good news about Space Force is the show treats Steve's character with respect. I disagree. Others may make fun of him, but he's not being portrayed as a clueless idiot. He's a good guy. He is portrayed as a clueless idiot, but he's a good clueless idiot. I mean, he is treated like an idiot in the show, in the writing of the show. Your 42 question only works nowadays. Back when I was 18, I was able to go out to bars, but the answer used to be 36. Yes, the answer was 36, but lifespans are getting longer, so now it's 42. Laughs in Australia beneath my earmuffs. Morning that says, posts like Valor about the disgusting things humans do are the main reason I don't do social media. I understand that. I don't do Facebook because Facebook is just blah. And Lorecraft, I missed a couple of your earlier comments, Lorecraft said, I do subscribe to a moral framework that would be described as far more conservative, though I arrived at the conclusion that's ideal non-theistically. And yes, the rioting over here in London too, 27 police officers have been injured down in London. I'm sorry about that. The ultimate question is, what is the ultimate question? That's not a bad ultimate question. Pianodean says, hey, bed life will be mixed today, and mostly likely everyone will hear it on the very next Birds live stream. Turned out fantastic. I can't wait to hear it. Luke says it's not other options. It's their conclusions. It's not their opinions. It's their conclusions. It's not some scholars, but most scholars. It's an argument from authority. It's a retelling of what they say. Yeah, that's not an argument. That's you're basically trying to regurgitate something that you say is what most people believe without supplying proof of that. I can find a dozen scholars just off the top of my head from, people that I know that are actually people who teach this stuff, people who are experts in this stuff that would disagree with you. So where are all these scholars? Where are all these religious scholars? Oh, let me guess. They're the scholars that aren't Christians, probably. But where are all these scholars that are out there saying that there's no Satan in the Old Testament? I mean, I understand what you're trying to say. Well, it's phrased differently, it's written differently, it's a different style, blah blah blah, different language. So therefore, different person. Okay, fine. You can believe that. I think you're just, I don't know what the point of that is, so and I understand, like, you can make a case, well, the snake in the Garden of Eden is not directly called Satan, even though in later books it's referred to that the snake of the Garden of Eden was Satan. I get that. You could say, okay, that's a retcon, right? I think you have a tougher time with Job, but then you can come up with an excuse why Job is not Satan. Okay, fine. You have fun with that. It doesn't matter, ultimately. If you think it's all fiction, why does it matter? You're close to 15K. Actually, my sub count has been going down the last couple of weeks. I need to work on that. And I know it's in large part because I haven't had a lot of content coming out. Fortunately, now that I'm starting to get stuff going again, hopefully that will turn around. As for Satan in the book of Job, he's just like the other Satans. He's one of God's servants. In this case, it is the case that God sometimes sends his servants to deceive when he sees fit. All right. I'm sure that's it. I'm sorry, Luke. You know what? I don't even understand the point of your argument. You're just trying to poke holes at something that's like, I mean, and here's the thing. If in the book of Job it said, oh, and one of the many Satans showed up and talked to God, then okay, fine. I'd believe you. I don't think it says that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But you see, and so that's the problem. It's like what you're doing, and I don't care if it's coming from you or all these massive biblical scholars that you're talking about. If you say that, okay, God has a bazillion Satans and God sends them down to do his dirty work and blah, 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 right? So that's your basic premise there. You need to demonstrate where in the Bible it actually says that, because if the Bible is the ultimate authority, from the mind of a Christian or a Jew, the Torah, Tanakh, and then for the Christian, the New Testament would be the ultimate authority of that. So if you could show me where it actually says that, fine. There are multiple Satans, and maybe the Satan referred to in the New Testament is just one of a gang of Satans. Fine. I would have no problem with that whatsoever. But for you to assert that there are all these different Satans and the one in Job is just one that God happened to pick that day, that's perfectly fine if you can demonstrate it, but you can't demonstrate it. You're just making shit up right now in order to support your case. There is nothing there. May you have a may you have tricked by underestimate Conan. I'm not underestimating Conan. Conan is ancient fighting styles. How dare you say purple? Men are simple. Men are only see basic colors. It's just a shade of red. I said purplish, pinkish. Jerk. We learned yesterday that Bird of Prey 5 wanted to be cast as the next Batwoman, but he didn't qualify because he's a straight white guy. Well, that's true. Morality is well understood and explicated by philosophy and doesn't need God to do so. Are you denying the existence of moral philosophy? Am I denying the existence of moral philosophy? No, I didn't mention moral philosophy. I'm saying that absolute morality can't exist without an absolute moral code, and in order to have an absolute moral code, you have to have a supreme being. Are you just the output of God's biological 3D printer? I think that you could make a case for a literal, in a literal translation of Genesis, you could argue that is the case with Adam. If everything we do or say is predetermined and pre-programmed, then how could anyone make any kind of truth claim? You can't. That's the point. And to the true atheist, you can use that as an argument. You can say that there is no such thing as truth, and people actually use that kind of argumentation these days. But yeah. And there's Lorecraft. I already read that one. Alexander says the vast majority of human species prefers peace to war. Peace is the best way to bring happiness to the majority of the human species. Peace can only exist with social justice. Not true. Peace can exist with totalitarian rule. The peace of the Sith is a real thing. If you have absolute total control, you have peace. And so, yeah, and in fact, if you want the most efficient peace you could possibly, if peace is the ultimate good, then what we need is an absolute dictator. Our universe is not deterministic, it's probabilistic. Actually, that is false, Sean. Just because we cannot predict it does not mean it cannot be predicted. It just means that we cannot, because we lack the ability to see all the factors. And that's, but you see, and that's human arrogance and hubris there is the, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm saying that this is, in the scientific community, we say, oh, since we can't predict it, it can't be predicted. That is arrogance. That is an unwarranted assumption. How you being just chemical reaction somehow turns you into nothing or meaningless being. Emotions are also chemical reactions. We know that and can chemically modify them. So what? All right, well, if you think that you're nothing but a pile of chemical reactions, fine. I don't. Alexander says, Momo will never lure me. I know. And by the way, Luke, I missed you so much, dude. Welcome back. Carlos says, could God could God not have made the universe and be the universe at the same time? Our consciousness is a small part of God, and the universe is made from God. Could God have made the universe and not made and be the universe? Oh, could he have made the universe and be the universe at the same time? I suppose that's a possibility. It's not one I subscribe to. Alexander says, leftists are the far left of the far left. I'm of the far left. I'm not a left. Leftist is the far left of the far left. I am out of the far left. I'm not a leftist. I don't know, Alexander. You come across as kind of a leftist to me. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate you or anything, but you do come across as kind of a leftist. But I don't know. I haven't asked you enough questions to really know. Off topic. It's not hard to find on YouTube, The Door. Okay. Not sure what the point of that is. So you can find The Door on YouTube.
So the first
Nope, that's not what I meant to do.
approach to
Yeah. Okay. The Door. And I see there's a channel, 59.4 thousand subscribers. And look, oh, it looks like it's a biblical channel. Okay. It says, by acknowledging that they are trying to redefine what is moral, you're admitting that they have their own moral standard, and it's clearly an absolute one. It's called progressivism. Now, you see, that's where you see, here's the thing. There's a difference, and maybe this might be a linguistic problem between us, Luke, is that there's a difference between saying absolute morality and dogmatic morality. Dogmatic means you are inflexible. This is the way it is. This is how it is 100%, right? Then, so yes, there are people that have a dogmatic set of beliefs that are not invoking a higher power, right? Absolute means universal. It means that the only way to have something that is universal is for it to be an intrinsic part of the universe itself, like say gravity, something like that, or in the case of an idea like morality, that it would come from a supreme being. Star Trek Nitpickers, thanks for the good advice. You're more than welcome, my friend. Whoa, if God suddenly decide that murder was right, we all supposed to start killing each other? Well, here's the thing. Technically, you could say yes, but it would also be very much out of character for God to do that. God is not some guy that's like, you know what, screw it. God is not a troll, basically, put it that way. Momo donates another $1.
Great kid. Don't get cocky.
I don't have to lure you, Alexandra. I already got you. I'll see you at our wedding in Cuba. I love you, Alexandra, with all my heart.
Well, there you go. Momo's got Alexander, apparently. Tom says, good morning. I just got here. Some on the left think it's moral to hand condoms to 5th graders. That's true. And I do not. I think that's a horrible thing to do. And I think that it is an attempt to usurp the rights of parents. By the way, I do need to wrap it up in just a few minutes, guys, because I got to go to work in a little bit. Murder is wrong because it is wrong, not because God says it is. We don't need God to tell us that. Well, perhaps it seems pretty self-evident that murder is wrong, but then what about killing unborn babies? Wondering, is that right? Wrong. Are you committing an act of manslaughter, murder, or is it just getting rid of some dead tissue? Well, it's not dead. We know that much. It's human. We know that much. Is it wrong? Is it wrong to take another life if that life hasn't developed yet to where it has a chance to defend itself? There's a lot of debate on that one. Let me ask you this. Is Yeshua beyond human comprehension? Did your God create you in his image? How can you expect me to entertain the possibility you are not believing in to discuss yours? Is Yeshua beyond human comprehension? As far as what he is, absolutely. As far as what he teaches, no. Did God create you in his image? Yes, that's, humanity is created in the image of God. That doesn't mean that we are God. How can you expect me to entertain a possibility that you're not believing in to discuss? How can you expect me to entertain a possibility you're not believing in to discuss yours? That seems nonsensical. I'm not asking you to entertain a possibility that I don't believe in. I've read the coroner's report on George Floyd. Said he died of a heart attack while on fentanyl. This is going to make it harder to get a conviction. And I think that upgrading the charge to second-degree murder was a mistake. Third-degree murder, I think that they could get a conviction on. Second-degree, I don't know. I like the Book of Job, one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's helped me many a time. There are two Satans, the devil and bird of prey. We can agree on that. I can demonstrate it by citing biblical research on the meaning of Satan in each of its occurrences in the text. If you can't see why demonstrated in chat, I can't help you. Well, here's the problem. So you're suggesting that because there are different words used to describe Satan in different passages of the Bible, that it clearly is a different person. Okay. So there are also many different words used to describe God. Does that mean that there are 75 different gods, since there's 75 different words used to name God and describe God? Thomas says, yes, God created Andy Trekker in his image. That's why Andy Trekker looks old. Yeah, I'm a jerk. Yes, you are. And I'm trying to get through as much as I can here because I do need to wrap it up in just a couple of minutes here. Luke says, plus there's an interesting passage which God has no problem saying that he causes the evil in the world. Where is Satan in that account? Actually, that's a very interesting passage that you're citing there. And there's Thomas's super chat. Sorry to rush through it because I'm trying to get caught up. I cannot promise you if you're putting it in the chat right now. I don't know if I'll get to it.
In his image, that's why it looks old. I'm a jerk.
Yes, you are a jerk because I got to get through this. But anyway, where was I? Okay. So when God says he puts evil in the world, this is a common problem with translated Bibles into modern languages is that it's like, for example, the word hate in the Old Testament. There is a passage where it says, oh gosh, I'm going to get their names mixed up. Oh man, Jacob I loved and Esau I hated, I believe is what it says.
I got him!
And Harry puts in a couple of bucks. Thank you.
Tom Potts thought I was the elder here.
You are, but Thomas doesn't understand the chronological age. Thomas is confused. That's okay. Anyway, so Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Now that same word for hate. Now, so people say, you see, God hates people because he hated Esau. Now that same word used for hate was used to describe one of, I can't remember. I don't think it was Jacob. Maybe it was one of Jacob's wives, because if I remember correctly, I could be getting Jacob mixed up with another character. I apologize, but I got to hurry through this. Is that he wanted to marry this woman. He went to his father, said, I want to marry her. He said, work for me for 7 years. So he worked for him for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, he married her, but the dad tricked him into marrying her older sister. And so he didn't marry the chick he wanted. And he was like, no, I want to marry her. He said, okay, work for me for another 7 years. So then he worked another 7 years, got the wife that he wanted. Now, it then says that he loved both of his wives, but he loved his the first wife, the one that he was tricked into marrying. He loved her less than her second wife. And so then that same word used for hate is used there, where God says to the other wife, because you have been hated, I will bless your womb, or something to that effect. And the point there is that the word translated into the modern vernacular as hate simply means loved less. Yes, Auntie. And so you have to, and as you yourself was suggesting when looking at the word Satan, you have to look at the actual word, the context that word is used. And so evil in this case isn't the modern vernacular word evil. It means strife, difficulty, pain. It doesn't necessarily mean evil. We need a dictator. A bird of prey gets the job done. No. Totalitarianism isn't peace because it's war against the population. Systematic structural violence isn't peace. Totalitarianism isn't necessarily violent. I got a food question. Do you know how to make a great breakfast burrito? Everything I use has lots of flavor, but when mixed together, it tastes like nothing, which is better than bad. I do not know how to make a great breakfast burrito. I think I means leaving the stream by using the door. Yes, Auntie, we're going to go in just a second. Cuba says, this door is a strange old guy to tell you about. Yeah, I know. You mentioned it before, but I haven't had a chance to watch them. Bolsheviks aren't leftists. Lenin and Trotsky fought leftism. Okay, so you want to say Lenin and Trotsky are not leftists. Okay. Luke says, godless accounts of absolute morality, moral philosophy called objective morality, moral real. Yeah, a lot of people, this is the problem, Luke. Most atheists will argue that there is no objective morality. Moral realists adhere to that position. They have no problem calling morality objective and absolute. Okay. You stand alone, my friend. Murder is legal killing. Law is telling you what murder is. Law is defined by humans for humans. Humans tell you murder is wrong. They were telling you before the time of Jesus. Okay, Luke. Murder is a word that means something very specific. Yes, all words are made up words and all that, but murder means to take another human life, generally with malice. Have you read the Book of Kings? Examples of God. All right, Auntie, we're coming. All right, so Auntie's reminding me that I do need to go. Stop strawmanning what I say. Luke, I don't have time right now. Carla says, loves less Star Trek First Contact, not hates First Contact. Very good example. It means how I hate 7 and 9, because more of my Asian Muslim wife, one of the SSR is the best choice. Caught up. I gotta go. I'm late. Later, guys.
Making your way with the nerds today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from hating JJ sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to just get laid? Sometimes you wanna go where all the Trekkies know your name. game. You wanna be in a galaxy where Star Trek isn't lame. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Turds of a feather flock together, that's what we believe. We know a place that's got you covered, a place to get relief. Wouldn't you like to say me poo? Sometimes you wanna go where turn-to-standies know your name. And all Kurogans are to blame. You wanna be where you can see Kuroga go up in flames. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
You son of a bitch, anti-tracker!